Actually, I'm gonna make this into a voice note. So, I've been thinking a lot about my dad recently, actually, because what I know about my dad is that he grew up with an absent father. He was Catholic, and then he graduated high school, went and did a tour of Europe in his late teens, early 20s, and then at some point, and he told me at one point that he was doing drugs. He tried LSD at one point. He was doing marijuana, and I think he was an atheist for a short time. And then at some point, I don't actually even know the story, he got saved. He found religion, and a lot of things must have changed. And this is weird. He told me stories about how he went to college. He was in the National Guard. He went to school. He got an associate's degree. I don't remember what in, but he was trained by the National Guard in radio science and also in electricity. That's where he learned his electrical knowledge. And then at some point, he came back to America and to the city where I grew up in. He met my mom there, and they got married and started having kids. They lived in a house in Yuba City for a few years, and then he was learning construction at that time. And then in his, I want to say, early 30s, so 5 years after he got married, and they were popping out kids. He had 3 or 4 kids. He started building the house that I grew up in. But here's the crazy thing is that at some point along the way, he became a fucking religious extremist. And what's crazy is that after talking with him, it's clear that he has some regard for science. And also, he speaks with wonder and awe about his tour of Europe. He really loved Europe. And he also loves the arts. He loves science and technology. He's a lot like me. He also is a crazy whack job, religious and philosophical extremist. And he's exactly the kind of person who, if had been born into different circumstances in a different religious context, would have been a violent religious extremist. He's a very polarizing person. And the crazy thing is that he obviously went through an evolution. At one point, he was an atheist, and then he became religious, and he sought out the most extreme interpretations of the Bible. And he's a fucking philosopher. He believes very strongly in his religious philosophies, and also he's got a lot of conservative philosophies that he believes very strongly in. And we were all indoctrinated in all of this bullshit, conservative ideologies and philosophy and religious ideologies and philosophies, and it was all very serious, taken very seriously. We studied it, we worked on it, we thought about it, we listened to the podcasts and the radio about it all the time. And he's just been inundating himself with the same ideologies for the last 20 or 30 years. But there's a lot of overlap between him and me in terms of. So I was talking with my friend Relay last night at Noisebridge, really interesting conversation, and we were talking about how usually people who get into philosophy, they do it as a trauma response. People who are really into philosophy usually are trying to heal or fix themselves or heal or fix the world, because it's not a normal thing to do. And I think now, in retrospect, my dad must have been lashing out or expressing a profound trauma response with all of his religious extremism. And I think I'm doing the same thing. I am also a philosophical extremist. I'm not religious anymore, but also I am doing damn near the same thing. I see a lot of parallels in what must have been my dad's path and my own path. And I don't think I've been able to see it until recently. There's just a tremendous number of parallels because I'm a fucking crazy person on so many levels. I'm really smart, but I'm also just flying by the seat of my pants and trying to make my way in the world in a completely novel and, I don't know, just a really disagreeable way, if that makes sense. My dad is really disagreeable, and so am I. And I don't want to say, I don't think I'm unfriendly. I don't think my dad is unfriendly, but also just I have perspectives, and also I don't really care who they disagree with. I stand by them because for the most part, I think I'd like to hope it's because I've thought them out, but I don't think that's always true. It's just that I'm a disagreeable person. And I think I was sort of trained to be that way by the environment in which I grew up in, but also assume it's genetic. I've always kind of thought it's like our fucking Scots-Irish heritage expressing itself. We're just very loud, boisterous, disagreeable, argumentative people. And in retrospect, it was really weird how quick and willing we were all to get into fights about random stupid shit. Where was I going with this? I don't know. I'm proud of my philosophy work, but also I am aware that it represents a crazy, insane path for a normal person to take. And also just, it's entirely extreme. It's been fueled by trauma and idealism, and it's just like, I don't know, it's crazy. And I think I'm going to get off this train at some point. I think I'm going to have enough distance where I have healed myself enough to where I'm going to be able to not need to do this anymore. I think it's coming up. I can sort of feel it. I assume in the next year or so, I'm probably going to step away from philosophy, or at least I think I'm probably going to step away from the research and maybe just write the book and then move on with my life. I think that might be something that happens, which is crazy. I don't think I could not even have pictured that as little as 6 months ago. And I don't know what moving on with my life means either. I don't know. It's complicated. The one more thing I want to add, which is that I also think about mom a lot. Mom, all from all external appearances, seems to grow up in a healthy, loving family. Her mom was an alcoholic, but as far as I can tell, mom was not and never was expressing a giant trauma response. I think she was incredibly religious somehow, which is weird because I don't think mom has never had an affect of extremism like dad has. But at the same time, referencing her sisters as data points, they are all profoundly religious people and also very conservative. And so I think that had a big influence. I think actually it wasn't just dad who is an extremist. It was also mom grew up in an environment where she thought that the direction that dad was leading was normal, which, to be clear, the direction that dad was leading was, I think, if you come from a normal background, if you're aware of what is normal in society, if you went to fucking high school and you have had rubbed shoulders with hundreds of other people from other backgrounds, then you will have some knowledge of what is normal in the distribution of society. And you'll start to realize that the direction that dad was leading in their marriage and in their life and family was not normal. It was very extreme, and yet she was with it. And at one point, she went crazy because she wanted to leave him because she was stressed. The way she talks about it is that he abandoned her with 9 kids. Essentially, he was a workaholic, and she felt entirely alone. And she was too stressed, and she wanted to leave him, but she didn't want to leave her kids, etc. And yet, she must have had the way that she talks about her growing up is with a lot of love and affection. She loved the farm. She loved her dad. She loved her family, and she had like a great experience. But they got married when they were 25. They met when they were 24, and so they were just kids. And somehow, somewhere along the way, dad got fucking hella radicalized, and mom just let it happen. And it's really hard to hold it against her because she's not the kind of person who you expect to have a lot of, I guess, strength in of their convictions from. And yet at the same time, she's a smart person. She's not stupid. And she must have known. She must have seen the writing on the wall. This is crazy. Tied myself to a crazy person. And she must have understood and seen that things were getting worse for her. And she was powerless to stop it, or at least she wasn't standing up for herself. And I think about that and I just feel so sad for her that she saw that where her life was going and she didn't use the strength of her conviction to fight for a better way of living. She never fought with dad on the principles. She only fought with him on the expression of how their life was lived. If he was doing something too crazy, she would stop him, but never about the principles he was using to forge his ideologies, which then dictated how he expressed and did everything. She never fought with him on the principles, only on the expression, which means that, I don't know, just like I feel so sorry for her. She was a normal person before she went crazy. She wasn't, she had friends, she had a social life, and she must have known, and she didn't do anything. I just feel so sorry for her. I feel sorry for them both. They've both had really tough, I think, bad lives, and nothing turned out for them the way that they wanted it to. And I think both of them, I don't know about dad so much, but I think for mom especially, if she could go back and stop herself from marrying dad when she was young, I think she would do it so fast. She just tied herself to a crazy person. I don't know. It makes me really sad.